I had always been the kind of person who thrived on challenges. From the moment I joined the company, I knew I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. It wasn't just about the paycheck, it was about proving to myself that I could make it. Over the past few years, I dedicated myself to learning everything I could, staying late at the office, and taking on extra tasks whenever I could. My colleagues started to notice, and so did my boss, Mr. Carter. He often praised my work ethic and attention to detail, even when others around me seemed to slack off. I'd built a reputation for being reliable, and I knew it was only a matter of time before I'd be recognized for my efforts. The promotion was finally up for grabs, and I felt ready. I had put in the hours, demonstrated my skills, and had the backing of my team. The role was everything I had worked for, a managerial position that would elevate me and allow me to have a more significant influence in the company. I couldn't help but feel like it was my time. The only thing standing in my way was my colleague, Emily. Emily was brilliant, of course, but we had always been competitive. She had a knack for getting things done quickly, but I often felt like she coasted by with charm while I had to put in the work to make an impact. When the announcement finally came, my heart raced. The team gathered around for the meeting, and Mr. Carter's voice filled the room. My stomach dropped when he called Emily's name. She was awarded the promotion. I felt a mix of disbelief and frustration. Emily, of all people. I had put in so much more effort, and yet here she was, getting exactly what I thought I deserved. In that moment, the carefully built-up confidence I had crumbled. The excitement of finally achieving something big had quickly turned into disappointment. I tried to mask my feelings, but I could already feel the envy bubbling inside me. How had this happened? Was it all just a matter of luck? Did Mr. Carter see something in her that I didn't have? It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It felt like a personal rejection. The days following the announcement were filled with a mixture of disappointment and confusion. I tried to focus on my work, but it was hard to shake off the feeling that everything I had done to prove myself had been in vain. Emily's promotion wasn't just a missed opportunity. It felt like a door slammed shut in my face, leaving me standing in the cold. Every time I saw her walking through the office with that knowing smile, I couldn't help but feel like she was rubbing it in. It wasn't just the promotion itself. It was the fact that I had worked so hard for it, and someone I considered my equal had been chosen instead. I couldn't help but replay the moments leading up to the announcement in my mind. What had I done wrong? Had I missed a signal? I had believed that my dedication would be enough, but maybe it wasn't. Emily, on the other hand, had always been more outgoing, more social. She had a way of charming people, making them laugh, and gaining their trust without much effort. I didn't have that same ease with others, and perhaps that was the difference. The more I thought about it, the more I began to question myself. Was I too focused on the details, too serious about the work, while Emily knew how to play the game? The worst part was the silence that followed the announcement. People in the office didn't seem to know how to react. Some congratulated Emily in a casual manner, while others, like me, remained silent. The air was thick with unspoken words. I couldn't bring myself to congratulate her. Not yet, at least. It felt like I was betraying myself, as though acknowledging her success would mean accepting my failure. But at the same time, I wasn't sure how to handle the simmering resentment that was growing inside me. I had always prided myself on being the kind of person who worked hard and earned my success, but now it felt like the rules had changed. For the next few days, I did my best to put on a professional face. I carried on with my work as usual, but it was hard to ignore the growing sense of bitterness that clouded my every interaction with Emily. She seemed oblivious to the tension, continuing with her usual friendly demeanor, while I couldn't help but feel betrayed. What made it worse was that no one seemed to acknowledge how hard I had worked for this. Everyone acted as if the promotion was a done deal, as if I had never even been in the running. It made me question whether my hard work had ever really mattered. If I had done everything right and still lost out, then what was the point? I knew I couldn't let this frustration consume me, but it was hard to see a way forward. Emily wasn't just my colleague, she had been my friend. We had been through so much together, shared long nights at the office, and supported each other through challenges. But now, that camaraderie felt like a distant memory. The bitterness was too strong to ignore. And what was worse, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I couldn't vent to my family or friends because they all knew Emily too. I felt like I was drowning in my own thoughts, unable to escape the swirl of self-doubt and resentment. Days turned into weeks, and the wound from the promotion was still fresh. I couldn't move past it. I thought I had the strength to handle rejection, but this felt different. It wasn't just about missing out on the promotion, it was about the loss of something I had worked for and the strange new dynamic between Emily and me. Every time I looked at her, I couldn't help but wonder if she truly understood what this meant for me. Did she know how much I had invested in this? Or was it just another opportunity for her to coast by? It was a Tuesday afternoon, just another typical day at the office, when everything changed. I had just returned from a meeting, still trying to shake off the sting of my failure, when I found an unexpected package waiting on my desk. The brown, unmarked box was strangely out of place among the usual stacks of paperwork and promotional brochures. There was no return address, no logo, not even a note. Just a simple, nondescript package. My heart raced as I picked it up, the weight of it oddly heavy in my hands. A curious mix of dread and intrigue washed over me. I turned the package over, trying to see if there were any clues, but it was just ordinary. For a moment, I considered leaving it untouched, thinking it might be a mistake or something irrelevant. But the nagging feeling that I had to know what was inside pushed me to open it. As I carefully sliced through the tape and peeled back the cardboard flaps, I gasped. Inside, there was a small silver key. I stared at it in confusion, unsure of what to make of it. Alongside the key was a folded piece of paper. My hands shook as I opened it, and my eyes scanned the note. The handwriting was familiar, but I couldn't place it right away. "You've worked hard. Don't let them take what you've earned. The truth is closer than you think. Find the door that this opens." The message was cryptic, but the more I read it, the more I felt a cold chill run down my spine. It was as if someone knew exactly what I was feeling, knew about my struggle, my sense of injustice, and they were urging me to look deeper, to not give up. But what door was I supposed to find, and who was behind this mysterious message? I sat at my desk, staring at the key and the note, trying to process everything. It didn't make sense. There were so many unanswered questions. Who had sent this? Why now? Was this a joke? The more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. It didn't feel like a prank. There was something purposeful in the way it had been sent, something that resonated with the frustration and confusion I had been carrying since the promotion was announced. But before I could dive deeper into the mystery, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my boss, asking me to join a conference call in 10 minutes. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should leave the strange package on my desk and focus on the work at hand. But something told me I couldn't just forget about it. I tucked the key and note into my drawer for safekeeping, feeling as though they held some kind of hidden meaning that would eventually reveal itself. The timing of the package felt intentional, as though it was meant to shake me out of my disappointment, to remind me that there was more at play here than I had realized. As I made my way to the conference call, I couldn't stop thinking about the key and the message. It was like a spark had been lit inside me, and I felt a sense of determination that I hadn't felt in weeks. I clicked into the call, settling into my chair as I waited for everyone to join. As the call started, my boss spoke about ongoing projects, new initiatives, and the usual updates. But then, unexpectedly, he made a comment that caught me off guard. He mentioned how impressed he was by the work that Emily had done, how she had stepped up in ways that no one else had. At first, it sounded like typical praise for a hard worker, but then he said something that completely changed my perspective. "You know," he said, "sometimes the people who stand out are not always the ones who speak the loudest or demand attention. The real leaders are the ones who quietly get the job done. And it's always the quiet ones who make the biggest impact. At that moment, everything shifted. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It wasn't about Emily or my feelings of being overlooked. What my boss had said resonated with me on a deeper level. I had been so focused on my own disappointment that I hadn't seen the bigger picture. The key, the note, the message, it was all beginning to make sense. The truth wasn't about the promotion, the title, or the recognition. It was about the work itself. It was about quietly earning respect, building trust, and doing the work without needing validation. My manager wasn't just praising Emily's outgoing nature. He was acknowledging the substance of her contributions, the behind-the-scenes work that mattered. And in that moment, I realized that I had been looking for answers in the wrong places. The days following the conference call were a whirlwind of reflection. Everything I thought I knew about the promotion, about my place in the company, and even about my own aspirations began to shift. The package, the note, and my manager's words during the call kept echoing in my mind. I spent hours replaying the events in my head, each time coming to a different conclusion. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. What had once felt like an unfair defeat now seemed like a lesson in disguise. I had spent so much energy focusing on the title, the recognition, the validation I thought I deserved, that I hadn't taken the time to see the bigger picture. I had been so caught up in my own ego and frustration that I had ignored the most important aspect of the work, the impact it had, the value I brought to the table. But facing the truth wasn't easy. It was a harsh realization that my obsession with getting the promotion had clouded my judgment. I had become so fixated on the external reward, the external validation, that I had overlooked the internal growth I had experienced. The truth was staring me in the face. It was never about the promotion. It was about the work itself and the quiet leadership I had demonstrated without realizing it. I thought about Emily, the woman who had received the promotion instead of me. It would have been easy to feel resentment, to convince myself that she didn't deserve it, or that I was better suited for the role. But that wasn't the truth either. Emily had worked tirelessly, just like I had. Her leadership style was different from mine, but that didn't make it any less valuable. She had earned the position not by being loud or aggressive, but by consistently delivering results, by doing the work without expecting constant praise. In many ways, she embodied the very principles my boss had mentioned on the call. As I reflected on all of this, a sense of calm began to settle in. The weight of my disappointment slowly lifted. I realized that the journey wasn't about who got the promotion or who didn't. It was about how we showed up every day. The success wasn't measured by the title, but by the difference we made in the work we did. The key in the note had opened my eyes to a bigger truth sometimes. The most valuable achievements are the ones that are not immediately visible. Sometimes, the work that truly matters is the quiet, behind-the-scenes effort that doesn't always come with recognition. I had been so focused on the external accolades that I had failed to recognize the impact I had already made. The key wasn't a literal key to a door. It was a metaphor for unlocking the potential I already possessed, for understanding that my worth wasn't tied to a title or a promotion. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I accepted it. The truth wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And as I sat in my office, reflecting on everything, I felt a sense of peace that had been missing for a long time. I no longer felt angry or resentful. I felt empowered. The truth had freed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. It allowed me to see that I was already enough, that the work I had done was valuable, and that the journey was just as important as the destination. As the days passed, I found myself looking at my career and my life through a completely new lens. The weight of disappointment had faded, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose I hadn't felt before. I realized that while the promotion had been important to me, it wasn't the defining moment of my career. Instead, it was the way I had responded to the challenges, the way I had grown in my work and in my understanding of what really mattered. The key in the note had shown me that success wasn't about climbing a corporate ladder or receiving external validation. It was about staying true to my values, contributing meaningfully to the work, and continuously striving to improve myself. I had always been focused on what I could achieve in the eyes of others, but now I saw that true fulfillment came from personal growth and making a real difference. The lessons I had learned weren't just about accepting defeat. They were about understanding the power of resilience and the importance of finding value in the journey itself. I had set goals for myself that were centered around recognition and approval. Now, my goals shifted to a deeper, more intrinsic purpose. How could I contribute to my team in a way that was both meaningful and sustainable? How could I continue to grow as a leader, not because of the title I held, but because of the impact I made? I started to embrace a new mindset. I no longer saw Emily as a rival, but as someone with her own strengths and talents. Her promotion didn't diminish my worth or my potential. Instead, it was a reminder that success was multifaceted, and that we could both thrive in our own ways. The collaboration between us could create something far greater than any competition. I began to think less about competing for promotions and more about how we could elevate the entire team together. I set new goals for myself, focusing on developing my skills, taking on new challenges, and finding ways to inspire others. I no longer felt the need to prove myself to anyone. I understood that I had already proven my worth by the work I had done and the dedication I had shown. It wasn't about waiting for someone to recognize me. It was about recognizing my own growth and taking pride in that. Moving forward, I approached my career with a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer chasing a title or an external reward. I was focused on becoming the best version of myself, both professionally and personally. I was determined to make a meaningful impact, not just for my career, but for the people around me. The promotion had been a pivotal moment, but it wasn't the end of my journey. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where my growth, my contributions, and my relationships with others became my true measure of success.